Good evening, everybody. We're blessed and honored to have Dr. Angelene Naw with us now. She is one of the highest educated Karen to date. And, and her life experiences in the field of history, I think, will be able to teach us a lot about the Karen culture and maybe part of the history of Burma also. And I think that's kind of important because in this day and age of a myriad of conflict all over the world, I think it helps helps us find common ground when we understand different cultures. So with that, I hand it over to Dr. Angelene Naw.
Pastor Maggie that arranged all these things, and thank you for the all these church leader pastor from this church that given me the opportunity. I would like to start with the Bible verse that Isaiah 6:8 said, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here I am, send me.'" So based on my belief, since I was young, I want to be a missionary. But I never become a missionary. I become a school teacher. So, but anyway, there are in certain stage of my life that I want to be something, and especially I want to be my Korean people, to give them, to want to help my people to develop well and to embrace God and to love God. That's become my major goal, because when I was like 14, I was to act as the Queen Esther in a play set at a summer camp, and since then I said I want to help my people whatever way I can. So that's my dream, and then there's part of my dream come true because of I'm trying to go everywhere. Whenever people ask me about my Korean people, I talk about how we Korean people are very blessed in a way that although we struggle, we always overcome certain obstacles through our faith and through God help. So I want to talk about, I hope that you all don't mind that I'll talk about first how our Korean become believers, because I want to talk about, like, here I am, send me. That is because when until 1830s, around about 28, many of our Korean people living in the jungle, because it was the time that the Burmese that time the king that ruled the country, and Karen were persecuted because they were only living in the jungle, and because of the taxation on the current people, and the minority was so huge that they did not stay in the city. So they lived mostly in the countryside, in the mountain area. But they were the main provider for the Burma. That time it is not called Burma, it is the kingdom of Gombao dynasty. From the 1750s until the British annexation, that kingdom was called Gombao dynasty. So at that time, there were legends that there were Karen, minor ruler under the king of the emperor, not emperor, it's a kingdom of Mon Kingdom under the Burmese kingdom. There were, like legend that there was small king, but even we have that small king, they were all, sort of enemies or Buddhists. So we were all mostly, we don't know about Jesus Christ. But in 1813, Adoniram Judson came to Burma, and at first he didn't have any opportunity to meet the Korean people. But in 1824, there was a war between the British and the Burmese king. So 1824-26, there's a war. When the war started, actually before the war started, Admiral Jetson was arrested and then put into prison. And during the war, he was almost going to be executed. But when during the negotiation between the British military officer and the Burmese king, the Burmese king needs somebody to negotiate the treaty because they lost the war a lot. So that's why finally to talk for negotiation, the king has to ask who can speak Burmese and who can write English to both languages. So at the time, his advisor told him that we had two American missionaries who could speak and write Burmese. They are American, but they were American, but they could speak Burmese and also write Burmese very fluently because Jetson already translated the Matthew into Burmese already. So that's the reason that he was not executed, but he was taken out of the prison, and then he started to involve in the negotiation. So when the treaty was called Yandabu Treaty was signed, actually Jetson was the major contributor to that treaty called Yandabu Treaty. So from 1826, that after the treaty was signed, the British got the Lower Burma, Northern Territory, and Rakhine State. These came under the British control. So he moved to the area called Amherst, where he started his mission. And there, actually, unfortunately, his wife died during this time in 1828. So he was left alone, but he tried to continue to do the mission work. He was left with his small young daughter, just like 2 years old. And then, not very long, the baby also died. So he has a very hard life, and yet he continued to do the mission. And Jonathan Wade was with him at that time, and Deborah and Jonathan Wade helped him and also tried to take care of the baby. But in the 1830, the 28, the Boardman also arrived. Boardman arrived, and then Boardman and his wife Sarah, Jetson assigned them to the Karen area in Dewey. So at that time with Jetson, there is a Karen called Kotabi. He was bought by Jetson as a free man, and so stayed with Jetson. And so when Boardman came and had to go to the Way area, current area, Jetson sent him. Until then, Jetson didn't trust Kotabi to be baptized because he felt that this person cannot be, a Christian yet. His heart is so dark, he thought like that. So he trained him and talked to him, teach him, but he didn't trust him there. But after they moved to Molamine as a center. From there, Boardman took Jetson and Jonathan Wade arranged that Kotabi went along with Boardman to Dewey. Finally, when they arrived Dewey in 1828, May 18, Boardman baptized Kotabi. So the first Karen baptized is called Kotabi. Later, he died around 1840. Within the 12th year, he converted, baptized about 1,275 people became Christian. So within this 12th year. So later, missionary always claimed that he is, even Mason called him the apostle, current apostle. So Kotabi was the first person. And because of Kotabi, many Karen began to believe, converted to Christianity, and then because Boardman wrote to the American mission at home to send some linguists because he found that there were thousands of Karen in the Dewey area, but they have no language, they have no written language, or they don't have any God religion that really affirmed, because most of them were enemies at this time. So Boardman, according to Boardman's request, a Mason was sent. Reverend Mason was sent to Burma, and Reverend Mason became the one that who translated Bible from Hebrew straight to Korean language. He was the person. But the person who really introduced invented the Korean written language was Jonathan Wade. In 1832, he started to invent this Korean language, and because they said when they went to the Korean area without knowing the language, without the written language, how could you teach these people about Jesus Christ, the Word of God? So that's why they started to invent this Jonathan Wade. Actually, it's a long story, because when Jonathan Wade went to the Korean area, the Korean have the legend that, the white brother will come back and give them the book. So the lost book they have. So that's the reason when the head of the Korean village head asked him, "Where is our book?" Then he looked at, "We don't have any book." "No, our brother promised that you will bring back the book." So that's, we have that saying. So if we talk about the saying, there were several interesting stories, but one of the story I wrote in my book that according to the story, God Father gave the three children one book in golden, one book in leather, and one book in bamboo plait like that. So because of the Korean were given the golden book. The eldest brother was given the book with the leather. The Korean were given the golden book, and the younger was with the bamboo plate like that. But what happened was the elder brother Burmese lost their leather book, and the younger brother also lost the book. The Korean, they have the golden book, but they were afraid that they will lose it. So the younger white brother is very fond of sailing. So they said, "Okay, keep this book for us wherever you go and bring it back." So that's why when they give this golden book to the younger brother, that sailor, and then this younger white brother left them. So they were waiting for the day that the younger brother will bring back the book. That was the legend. So when they found Jonathan Wade and went to their village, they asked them the book. But so when the Jonathan Wade came back, he considered about that in 1832, he started to invent the written language, because the Korean has the spoken but no written language. So finally, orally, they can pass their story from one generation to another. And then based on that, they try to, and that's why Jonathan Wade need to, when he and his wife, they were very sick in 1932 to come back to America, they brought back the first Korean. Now, his name is Sochatai. In 1832, he brought back to America, and when they arrived in America, it was the conference that, American Baptist Conference, that during the meeting, they started to talk about how to, make use of these people. And then they started to say that, okay, we are going to have a Korean and Burmese language teacher. And then they appointed this Sochatai and other more Christian who've come along, and they studied at the New York theology school. And it was only 9 months, but all of them, like Vinton and his other missionary who planned to go to Burma, took the Korean and Burmese language lesson from there. So they follow Jonathan Wade. All these missionaries follow Jonathan Wade, and they started the school for the Korean, and also theological training for the pastor. So starting from there, to make it short, by 1870, there were 10 Korean study in America. They came and they studied in America, and they also, the first person was in 1871. He got his bachelor, also master degree. He was ordained in Chicago church. So that was the Korean who got so educated. And later, next year and two, there were Bugonow doctor, Mia Sampokwe, lawyer and business, all the girls who went to Shujin, follow Reverend Harris, who wrote the Star of the East, about this verse. So there were like more than 10 people began to educate it in America, got their degree from America by the 1871, 75, around that period. And this first graduate from America, that T. Dambia, was the one in 1881. He started to form this an organization, a Karen association called Dokalu. And Karen is our whole Karen people. It's a so he started to form this. Actually, it's a long story to talk about how he was inspired by the governor visit and thing, and he raised a Karen choir to help to host the governor who came to Burma. So starting from that he applied to the government to make this organization as an official organization. So even before the famous India Congress in 1885, the Karen organization was formed ahead of them. Actually, we were far ahead of the Indian political leader that formed this. And yet, by that's why what I was trying to say is that our current leader, without getting the education in America, with the support of the American missionary, because they support these young Korean people who are very bright and smart, and then they took them to America to get education. And when they come back, they got their degree. They were given by British government the position to get the high position, but they don't take it. They went to the school that established by the Christian school, and they tried to teach them, be teacher, so that all the Korean people everywhere to start school and get education. That's the way that they started. So, so by 1871, the first college that developed by the American missionary. They call it themselves the Korean missionary because they were try to develop the Korean people. So they started 1870. They proposed that there will be a Korean university, a college called the Baptist College in 1871, and that college later became called Judson College by 1920. In Burma, because until 1924, Burma was under the British, combined under the Indian government, so part of India, that's why. Only after 1937, then Burma was separated from Indian administration. That's why Burma used to be part of India, okay? So, and we all know that at that time, British Empire was so huge that sun never set on British Empire from the east, from New Zealand to the west. So when the sun rises in New Zealand in the east, then from Hong Kong, British Empire, Malaysia, Singapore, Burma, until London, and even part of the west like that. So it was a British Empire, and Burma was that. And during this Burmese British administration, all these educated Korean people, with the establishment of Judson College, many Korean graduated from that college, and the lecturer later, many Korean become lecturer in serving that university. That's why, although it was intended for the Korean in the beginning, later they accept all the other non-Christian, non-Korean were all accepted. That's why later we can see that the first, the local principal of Judson College was a Burmese, and Dr. Labu, he was the first Judson College president, and he was a Burmese. So that's why we can see that the country developed during that time. There were not many universities, but only Rangoon University that established by the British, and under that there were only this Baptist College, which named Judson College. So then, like Reverend Sambo, who later Reverend, but he was the committee member of this. He was the president of this Dokalu, Korean National Association, which T. Dambia started. And he became the congressman, parliamentary member. And also there are other, like Dr. Sansipo, who got his medical doctor degree from America and became the first American citizen from Burma. not only Karen, but also Burmese people. In 1886, Dr. Sansipho became the citizen of America, and he was a Republican at that time because all the churches. So that's what I read about him, okay? So, and I also met some of his children, grandchildren. So, but what I mean is he graduated from here. But when he went back, he worked for the public, and he became also one senator in Burma. So during British periods, all these educated Karen people began to take part in the government political institution, that they had the opportunity to ask for their right. So Dr. Sansipho in 1928, he started to talk about Karen nation. They want the Karen nation, Karen state, to ask for the Karen state. So he wrote a book about Karen and Burman. So through his book, he writes that we Karen should have our own nation, Karen state, and starting from then, Karen began to think about how to get their Karen state that time. That's why, since 1928, but by 1937, this whole Dokulu organized and started to ask for, okay, how are we going to start our nation? So they started to ask, the current National Dokulu started to announce that, okay, we will do our current flag. And so they announced that, they asked that everybody can send their flag there. And so there were 100 flags that gave design sent to the committee, the current KNA. And then later, out of that 100, they choose 12. And finally, the 12, they selected only 3. And the 3, out of that, the 3, they combined together, and they asked Mamba King, later become a minister, not only British period, but also in Burma Parliament. So he made this into this today, that what we use for the current, every current ceremony, we use this flag. But until then, we don't have our Korean New Year Day yet. So in 1937, all these Korean parliamentary members started to write a proposal to the government to give a Korean National Day. So, but for the British government, if they talk National Day, there will be a clash with the majority Burmese. So they said, okay, we can do a Korean New Year Day. So they make it a Korean New Year Day. And after 1897 August, they approve it. But because the approval was given in December, so actually the first day of Korean New Year celebration was not that elaborated like later. So only a few people and the leader Sidney Looney, who was one of the organizer and the parliamentary member, he gave a speech from the radio about this Korean New Year on 1938, January 1st. That was the first. But because current calendar, if you go like sometime in January, sometime in December. So the next Korean New Year was celebrated on 21st December 1938. So in 1 year, there were 2 Korean New Year celebrations. That's the other day I read his greetings letter. So that was, but just one thing is interesting is when they choose the Korean New Year date, they propose whether we will choose Jetson arrival, the day to be Korean New Year, or 1st January Korean New Year, or the Korean proposal, the late means the month that they have the harvest and things like that. So finally, Ramolo, the one who said, okay, we will all agree that that the late first or second the day of the month, the Piadula Sadienivo, that is the day that they choose. And then since that's why this Korean New Year celebration started from through the effort of the educated Korean Christian. We cannot deny the fact that through Christianity and through Christian education, that Korean are recognized as a national race in Burma, and they could celebrate the Korean New Year Day. So that's the main way that how we become educated, okay? And how we started to be recognized as a nation, ethnic group in Burma. Until then, the population in Burma, according to the statistics census, actually, after the Shan people, we are Burma and Burmese and the Shan, and we are the third group that the largest population in Burma. Until today, we are the second largest group in Burma. But unfortunately, at that time, many Karen become Christian with the school and all these things, and a lot of Karen converted to Christianity, and the Christian leader were the one who took this to Chin state, Chin people, Kachin, so all these, to the minority group in Burma, and yet today we have only like 30 to 35% Christian population out of the current population. So, but Chin and Kachin can claim that they are like 90% in Christian. And another one that I want to go back to a little bit of history. People are interested in the history, how Karen people, the origins of Karen people. There were several theories because we don't have any written language, so we don't have a record that like really reliable, and like we don't have any like only through oral history, but the oral history that all these scholars try to refer were called the poem, the Ta, the Ta that the older generation passed it to one after generation. All these Ta are about current culture, how, when the people got married, how they arrange it, when they die, how they arrange it, and they call the spirit like this. So these are the traditions. They have all these things, and they also talk about the drum, which is important in our culture, and so the culture of the Korean people. So based on the Thai and based on what Reverend Mason tried to find out, because it was Reverend Mason who brought the Korean people to the knowledge of the global level. Is Reverend Mason. He was the one who really brought the attention of the other people about these Korean people. And so, first thing, his first theory was that Korean came from the one lost tribe of Israel, because they came from Babylonia, and then to across the Pakistan, Middle East, all this area, and then to Gobi Desert, and then to China. So that's the first theory. But actually, also in 1841, 46, until then, he has the theory. But he was a very brilliant scholar that he tried to research more about Burma, and he wrote about Burma. The history, not only history, he wrote about Burma natural product, like the birds or all these natural animals and plants and flora and fauna, all these things, he wrote about that. So he became known as the scholar, very famous scholar of his time. And later, by 1860, he said that Korean people, the origin could be not similar to the Tibetan, because some of the word that Tibetan has the same that Korean, and also the calendar that they they developed similar to Korean and the Tibet. And he's also said that Korean must be from the southern China, western China. So he gave some evidence about they should be from China. So he started to see like that. But there are other theory that some scholar, since Reverend Mason brought up this theory, there were other scholars began to debate out the origins of the Korean people. So there were, in the 19th century, there were many argument about the origins of Korean people. And so finally the second group said Korean are from Mongolia, but finally the general consensus was that the Korean came from China. So that's why they were in China, and then Huanho River was the place where they call Tisemeyua. And from there, they moved to Burma in BC 739. There were several groups that moved from one time to another. So the final group arrived in Burma in 1739. That's why they took that date as the arrival of Korean in Burma, and they added to the Christian era. So that, so that's the way that they count every year. That's why we count here 2762, because 739 plus 2023, so we count that this way. We add the two number, and that's the way that we know the Korean New Year. So if we talk about origin, there were a lot of argument in the beginning, but now that everybody agreed that Korean came from China, okay? So, when I talk about education, about the Korean, and then about anything else that.
Could you talk about the when Burma got its independence and how the Korean started?
Oh, okay. At that one, if we talk about the 1949, the Burmese call it insurrection, okay, because it's under Burmese government. And we have to start from the time that before Burma get independence, because during the British period, one thing I want to mention is that during World War II, actually the Korean were the very, playing a very big role in this World War II. In Burma, the Allies fight against the Japanese, right? And so the Japanese came, and then there was a lot of issue that came out of this Japanese period. And the Korean many of them were serving in the British Army. And so when the Japanese came together with the Burmese Army, Burmese at that time BIA, Burmese Independent, which they were trained by the Japanese. So they came together because the leader Aung San went to China actually, but the Japanese contacted him, and he went to Japan and trained this soldier. So he brought in this marching in. So the Korean were very loyal to the British government. So when they came, the Korean were the people who resisted the Japanese. And the Burmese were so, they didn't like the British. So when they came in with the Japanese soldier, and they started to torture the Korean villagers at that time. Many Korean were killed, and many Korean women were raped during that time. The worst scenario was the one that 1942, in Miao Miao area, even there was a retired minister, Sopeta, who he and his whole family were killed. And the whole village was set on fire. Many Roman Catholic priests were killed, and even the baby were killed. So it was written, the record, that like thousands of people were killed Korean were killed during that time. Actually, the British, when the Japanese came in, they want the former Korean soldier to surrender their arms and ammunition. But the Korean didn't feel safe. But when they really, after the surrender, the day they surrender, the next day the whole village was attacked. So all this happened. So and it happened like that, there were like more animosity between the Burmese and the Korean. So, but that's why the Korean who left behind stay in the area. It's a strategic area where the Japanese army came into the country through that Thai-Burma border. And the Korean staying there. And there was a British army officer. His name is Seagrim. That's a very sad story. He was a British army officer, but he stayed behind, and he tried to give information to the British administration in India. So he stayed there, and many Koreans joined him because he was a very a good leader. He's a very devout Christian, so wherever he went to Korean villages, the Korean pastor tried to hide him. And so so they arranged in a way that in the future to get, they call it Force 136, to have a COVID operation in that area. And when he had contact with the British military commander in India, they arranged to send the people through the officer and military people through the parachute. So that they jump into the area to help. But unfortunately, the Japanese were so cruel that they tortured the whole village and fired the whole villages, several villages. So Major Seagram, he couldn't take it anymore. So he told his followers that, okay, I'm going to surrender, take me to them, because every village was burned and destroyed, and people were killed and tortured. So finally he surrendered with his followers. Some of them ate together. They were executed. They have to dig their own grave, and they were executed. The Korean were there. But he gave I wrote it in my book also, that how he sacrificed and his love and kindness to these people, that people, he touched the heart of the people so much that before he was executed, the previous day, he was asked to, somebody was going to execute it, and he has to, give his last, a blessing, so that and then before that, he was going to be executed, he knew, together with that. So he told others that, like Jesus Christ said, he said, please forgive the sin, because they don't know what they are doing. So that's what he said, and he was executed. So this bravery, but because of his work, that people from the India, military commander in India, received the contact, and they sent some people and to continue the operation. So finally, in 1945, just the British Army came down. They could reoccupy some of the town, and the Japanese army was still in one area, very strategic. They could come and attack the area that they occupy. And General Slim wanted to reoccupy Rangoon before the rainy season, because in Burma, once the rain is pouring, so whoever it will pour, and they know that, right? So they couldn't have the operation, military operation is impossible. So that's why General Slim wanted to reoccupy Rangoon, but they were concerned about the Japanese army in Taunji. But the British sent some of their leaders to train the Korean soldiers. Like I said earlier, the soldiers that Major Seagram recruited before. So these people joined them, and then they started to attack the Japanese troops that are coming down that road. So because of that, the Japanese troops scattered and they collapsed, so that the General Slim headquarters that they occupy in Metila, they were able to come down to Rangoon and reoccupy Burma, and the war ended earlier in Rangoon. So that's why in history, when they wrote about World War II in the Southeast Asia, especially theater, Korean names were always mentioned, because without the Korean, the history can turn around. That's why they appreciate and always praise about the bravery of the Korean people and how they saved the Rangoon from the Japanese. But after the Second World War, like I said, the politics, we have to talk about that. So then, after re-establishment of the British administration, the Koreans started to ask for the Korean nation, that Korean state. The problem was, that was the time that PASAP, AFPFL, Anti-Fascist People Freedom League, that, the Burmese group becomes so powerful because through the connection of the Karen, this General Aung San and all the Burmese army were recognized because they contact the Karen people, and the Karen people, we have the Karen Vijay Jadu and all these Samphut, all these people, that the name will be very hard to remember, right? But what I mean is these are the people try to connect, and in the Delta area, because the other part is, I talk about the Upper Burma, in the east part of Burma, they're close to Thailand, but there's, in the Delta area, they also organize Karen troop work with the Aung San. So that's why these people went to India, also they also came back and joined the forces and fought the Japanese. So after the independence, there were two groups, because one group really want to cooperate with the Burmese, because they fight with the Burmese, they fought with the Burmese, they work with the Burmese, so they believe these Burmese are sincere. But the other group that they don't trust, and they just want to have their own nation, current state, and they want to separate from that. So during the last 3 years, from 1946 to 2 years, 48, the Karen were fighting for the current state. And what happened was, one group, they worked together sometime, but based on the proposal they asked for the current state, they were different, because the Karen national organization, now KNU union, that they started to form, this group by Baoji, and the group didn't ask for the current state that included the pot, like from Delta area to Mon State, which is part of Lower Burma. And the Karen that cooperate with the Burmese, they said that, no, you ask too much. We need to have only our current state there. So there was argument between that. The British government couldn't handle this. I mean, couldn't solve the problem. So they couldn't solve the problem. So that matter was left to the Burmese leader during the negotiation independence. And Karen didn't join the Penang Agreement, which all the other ethnic groups joined and signed the treaty, because they said they don't want to join the Burmese Union of Burma, which will get the complete independence from British, because the British gave them the choice that whether you want to have a complete, absolute independence, or you want to stay in the Commonwealth. So that group didn't want to stay in Commonwealth. They want the complete independence. So, but the Karen want to have the independent that under Commonwealth. That's why there's the disagreement about that. And finally, that matter was not solved, although Burma gave it independence. So it's become a dilemma for the British government, But so they left it in the hand of those. But one thing that we have to admit that the Burmese leader Aung San, when he had negotiation agreement about the military leader and thing, Mountbatten, Louis Mountbatten, he asked, he said he's going to, set aside, keep aside and just withdraw from his military role as general. And he wants to recommend people to take over his place. And he recommended Karen General to be the commander-in-chief of Burma Army. And in the Air Force and also in the Navy, also all are Karen military commander. So they got the position there. And so when the country got independent, all these positions are in there. And some Burmese military leaders were not happy with that. So they tried to remove all these people, but there was no chance. But there was a chance coming out, because after the independence, the country was really in chaos. Communism, really, communist group was fighting, and it was multicolored insurgent. that they were not happy with the government, that, they said pro-British, because it's like all the major military positions are Korean and things like that. So they were fighting against the prime minister policy that time, UNU policy. So what happened was, the Korean that time, they formed the KNU, Korean National Defense Organization, and they helped the Burmese government fighting against the communists. They were loyal to the Union of Burma, and they were fighting against it. And general, you know that the British Army trained the military to be loyal. You are supposed to get the command from only your leader. You are not listening other people. If whatever your commander says, you are going to do that, right? So Koreans are so loyal to the commander-in-chief that they try to follow that. But at the same time, since the country was in chaos, some of our Korean army, some branches, they went to some town and robbed the bank and seized all the bank like that. So the government, Burmese government, got the chance to show that these Koreans are not bad people, and they could find the reason to fight the Korean. And there was a time they had multi-party system. So some of the moderate communists still in the country, some socialist group, they began to form their small army unit. So this army unit began to attack each other. And then our current KNU also, we have, actually, that's why we said that this is an provoked revolution, because the Burmese army, they didn't like the current as a leader, all these military leaders, they tried to provoke the current people to do this and that. And on 1948 December, at that night, all the current leaders told the churches that, oh, this year, please, we have the midnight service at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. That day, the leader, Ubeli, told also, like General Smith, don't ask Ubeli, tell the crowd that don't make too much noise, because it's, we have to be careful. So they went to the church quietly, but one of the Burmese military troops sent attack, not really attack the church, but hit something with the bomb and all this, so that the people had to run, and it happened like that. Not only that, there's not only insane in other current area, the Burmese all these started to attack and burn the city, burn the town, burn the houses, and kill some of the Korean people. So Korean people were not for sure they retaliate, right? So the war is started from then. And not only that, they in the other area, in the southern part of Burma, there was in Devoy, Devoy area, there's a church, they called it the village called Palau. That area, when people were worshiping, they dropped the bomb in the church. So many Christian Koreans were killed. So that all this news make the Korean people so mad and upset, So that's why they were ready to fight back the, Burmese, and then it's like the conflict started from. And yet, if we really look at the story, we look at the real history record, some of the Korean leaders, they didn't even, attack join this insurrection in this, revolution, Korean revolution immediately. They tried to keep peace. And General Smith, without giving any order, he has to, move to another place and stay quietly. According to the Prime Minister record, he said that General Smith don't resign from his post. Actually, General Smith wrote in his memoirs that no, he was asked to stay away for a while. So that's why if we look at that, actually this is really, and the newspaper are all against Korean. They said the Korean are killing this. Actually, they make it like the mystic of the Korean. In fact, actually, it's happened because of the attack first, and then the retaliation follow. That's the way. And yet the leader tried to have negotiation, and later, because they seized the insane township for like 100 over days. Yeah? And during that time, they had this, like a ceasefire for 10 days, and there's a negotiation between the Karen leaders and the Burmese leader. But even then, during the negotiation, many Karen leaders said that at the back, who took over General Smith don't place, actually he tried to operate, at that time, he tried to plan the operation in other area. So the Karen have no choice but to fight the government. So that's the way that we see. Did I answer your question? Uh-huh. But if you read the book, there are more details that you can know about what's going on there. Because I'm just telling you the gist of everything, just very short, way of telling the real what's going on, and then who try to do this thing. Actually, Koreans are very loyal. They try to even try to help the Burmese government to crush the communist rebellion.
So I think we should open it up for questions, and if anybody wants to ask some questions. And I thank you, Dr. Angelene, for a really, really great presentation. So let me open it up to questions.
The Karen celebrated New Year's, and I was there. And there's a banner with a number on it. And I asked another Karen person, what's that number mean? And they weren't sure. She tried to explain it. I mean, she did explain it, but I tried to understand and didn't. So if you could repeat that, I would appreciate it.
Oh, the year of the Karen New Year? Yeah. Okay. Because 739, they consider as the year that Karen people all arrived in Burma. The migration from China, and then they migrated to Burma in 3 groups, and each group come separately. And finally, the final group came down in 739. So 739 is the BC, not AD. It is BC, 739. So 739, and they add with the Christian year. So whenever you add 739 and the year that, like Christian year, you get the Korean New Year. That's why 739 plus 2023 is equal to 2762, right? That's the way. That's why you have to plus 739 BC plus the Christian year. That's okay. Got it? Well, that is a complicated question to answer. Through my experience, these military leaders, like I said, they are not only bad to our Karen people, they are really very... The political system is just the Burmanization of the country, and they want only Burmese, and the Buddhism, that will be the major, group of, and then, so they try to genocide, eliminate all other, minority, and especially if you are Christian. Although inside the city, they try to show that they are fair. In the peripheral area, they began to torture all these people. And to make the country like Burmese, they tried to make the soldier go to the area and marry all the other minorities so that all these people will become Burmese like that. Their policy is some people told me so. It is not recorded, but it was their policy. And another one is that we can see during the socialist period, at least they pretend that they care for the minority. And like, since I came through that stage in socialist period, I lived there, and I was a student, I was a university teacher, I worked with them. So through my experience, we were asked to organize a Korean cultural group. And at the university, we have the Korean Culture Group Association, or Chin Culture Association, Kachin Culture Association. During the Union Day celebration, February 12th, which they signed the Pelong Agreement, they will have a big celebration. And then they will invite all these Korean group dance, Kachin group dance, and join them, and with the flag, our Korean flag, Kachin flag, all these 7 division, and then they will arrange it. But after the military coup from 1988, all these pretense gone already. They really become like, dictatorship, we should say, authoritarian military junta, which we all know about that. And from 1988 to 1994, that time was really strict, and during that period, they don't really, even you dare not read the book that they don't allow. That's the way you have to read only. And sometimes some of the people, if they do something that against their, what they instructed, they will make some kind of reason and then put them into prison. I have my own experience. My friend who came back from Japan got his PhD, and I went back to Burma, like we worked together because we were assigned to write about Burmese history at the history research department assigned us because the school were closed, and the professor, lecturer like us, we was assigned to do something, so they asked us to do the history 4 volumes. Then I had to write the 2nd volume, and that friend, that colleague, he was assigned to do the research because we have the different sections. And one day he came back from a trip, and he came and talked to me in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock. And at night, at 8 o'clock, the news said that he was arrested because they found ammunition, arms in his house. So we couldn't believe that because he is a scholar, and he was not interested in all this much, so it's really he was like framed to be arrested. So that's why. And another experience was that during there was a time in 1991 that the university faculty member were asked to answer 32 questions. They gave us a form to fill up all these questions. And we have to answer this question. And after the result come out, after a month, like 400 faculty members were fired because they answered the question that they don't like it. So it's against their policy probably. But living throughout there, like myself, senior lecturer, we know what to answer, not to answer, right? So we were safe. We still could keep our job, but there were many. And at that time, since all the jobs were under the government, there was no private sector, except the religious part that, they have a little bit of freedom. From all other sections are under government because they nationalized all the job, all the school, all the university. So that's why if we lose our job, we have nothing to eat, right? So we have to make sure that we know how to, cope with this situation. And what I want to say is that outside people only see that, many news that, Korean, Kachin, all these people are tortured. Actually, their own Burmese people also were arrested for, if anything that they suspect. They don't want these people to be there, and they arrested also. That's why not only the minority, but also the Burmese people themselves now are suffering. That's why since 1988, they start to have the movement against the government, but many were arrested. The comedian, whoever talked fun about the government, were arrested, and even all their teeth were gone like that when they came out like that. So it's a country that, for the time being, I don't find any hope for another 5 years. Even 5 years will be, my estimation is a little bit positive, I should say. Actually, maybe another 10 years. This, as long as they control like this, there is not much hope for the people to get democracy or to have a government that really kind to the people. Yeah. So we went back to the previous time today, because now the announcement was that all the passports will not be issued anymore. Yeah, there was announcement just like last week that no passport will be issued to any citizen of Burma. So you cannot leave the country. You are a prisoner in your own country. Yes?
So we can get your book through Judson Press?
Can go to?
I can get your book through Judson Press?
When will your book be published?
Oh, I see. The book is coming out on the 15th. Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah. This Sunday, yeah.
I can order it already.
Yes, you have already ordered, so you will get it by like very close in a week, yeah. Sorry, I don't usually get it.
And then you will come back and sign it for all of us.
Yes, I will come back and sign for you, okay? Yeah, I will. I'm going to Burma. Not Burma, I cannot go back, because if I go back now, I will be arrested. First time I did not go back home in 2001, because my first book was published about Aung San. And at that time, they hate Aung San because the daughter was fighting against them. So at that time also, I did not go back. I have to wait until they got like 2012. Wait for 10 years. Yes, sorry, your question.
What would be some of your encouragement for the youth?
For the youth? Yes, that's what I want to encourage the youth to focus on your education, okay? You study whatever knowledge you can get, try hard. I told, like my father was like fighting the government. We were in the jungle with, like, Bomia was my father's friend. I was born and I went into the jungle. Like I said, I have the tiger, snake as my companion, okay? So the bullet, all these things around me all the time. We have to run and we don't have transport. We have sometimes only, like I said, elephant, but we don't have elephant all the time. So since I was like 3 years old, I run around the jungle, okay? So what happened is my father came back in 1957 and had to surrender, because that time in the current KNU area, the leader was split, you know. It was some of them in the Basin area, some in the Pauji died a lot for 5 years. The KNU was not very organized at that time. So that's why they couldn't even find the leader in the beginning, you know. So that's why my father came back in 1957 and we started, my father said, at that time, we cannot fight the Burmese government because they are much stronger than, so go study and be the teacher of the Burmese, you know. So he encouraged me that way. And pray God, be a good Christian and try to study hard, you know. So we study hard, and like he said, you know, we all are brother, sister, you know. We work hard to be, you know, to graduate from university, and we try to do whatever we can help all other, you know, younger people to go for the education. So that's a way you shine, you know, because if you don't study and you just, you know, stay on your own, nobody will know that we are Karen, you know. To know as a Karen, you have to outshine, right? So you have to show that you are Karen, you have to make, you know, in this community, to shine, you have to have good education, good knowledge, and, you know, so only then that you can become, you know, you can claim that, okay, we can preserve our Karen identity. Like this leader who helped us making this Karen New Day Karen, you know, identity through the national anthem, you know, that composed by the Karen leader. Christian leader, because they got the education and they work hard for the development of community. KNA, when it was formed in 1881, actually not for politics, they found it to upgrade the social welfare, the education, and the life of the Korean people. It is not for the really to fight for a nation yet at that time. They just tried to make sure that all Korean, regardless of religion, actually in the document, they said regardless of religion, to make sure all Koreans develop and educated, and because they are mostly in the jungle or very shy, come to the, they move from the jungle to the city because they need education and to become united. That's the way. The more you become educated, the more you see the world in a better way. That's why I would encourage my younger generation to study whatever, actually, especially in America, you can study anything that your interest. You don't need to choose. In Burma, they are competing for doctor, engineer. No, here, there are so much opportunity. Please, try to get any education and be the best in your field. That's the most important thing, okay? You don't need to be a professor or you're a doctor or a specialist like that. You can be anywhere, you can be computer or, any part of the job that you are good. People will recognize you as you are Korean, and you can preserve your identity as you can say, oh, I'm a Korean from Burma, that you can say like that. So that's a way that you can be proud of yourself, okay? So I just encourage you to try to go for a good education, okay? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Angelene. I think it's getting on in time here, so I want to let all of us know that we are planning, Pastor Maggie and I are planning that this is going to be a continuing information exchange, so we hope that Dr. Angelene will accept our invitation for her to come back not just once, but on a continuing basis where we could get more, learn more from you. So I think Pastor Maggie would like to say something here.
I'll be very honored to do that. I'll be happy to do that.